The stakes of this race could not be higher. We really truly have democracy at issue here.
Ladies and gentlemen, our justice.
What an awesome day for the state of Wisconsin.
This is really inexplicable. It's shameful, and they shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, I think whenever a new person joins the court, I mean, say two things about it. Number one, there certainly is going to be some shift in judicial philosophy.
Let me ask you a question.
I'm not done.
I just want to.
I'm not done with my question.
I hope voters will see that we will grow as a court that builds a culture that is applying the law. So that's my hope for us.
Just a small glimpse at the Wisconsin State Supreme Court. Justice Janet Protasiewicz sworn in August, flipping the court's 4-3 majority from conservative to liberal. And with that, the new court was off. Let's bring back our panel. J.R. Ross, editor of WisPolitics.com, Dr. Ken Harris with Truth in the Afternoons on 101.7 The Truth here in Milwaukee, Jesse Opoien, political reporter with the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. J.R., bring us inside this court. What is it like right now?
Look, the Supreme Court of Wisconsin has had moments of dysfunction for a long time. If you go back 2 decades ago, though, it was about personality conflicts. Don't forget that in 1999, several justices actually endorsed the opponent, Shirley Abrahamson, about how she ran the court. Then we had a dozen years ago, one justice accused of putting his hands on another justice. Now it's kind of like open warfare during oral arguments. It's just been a kind of a continuation of that. Strong personalities, big issues before the court, and complaints about what's going on. It's also a reflection of money being spent. I tracked $56 million spent on the race this past spring. I was told by Democratic operatives I was short by about $5 to $10 million, but that's all I could track. What was publicly available. That is mind-blowing. That was 3 times the cost of the most expensive race nationally before that. It just tells you the stakes are at play with the Supreme Court of Wisconsin.
Ken, what are you watching most closely over this next year with the court?
I'm trying to stay as far away from the court as possible. I think there are going to be a lot of fireworks that are going to be going on. I know since I'm on radio, there's only one guy on the court. And so that's going to be something that has to be talked about and looked at as it relates to how that interaction between, as you just saw on the clip, how that interaction is going to happen while still maintaining your respect and dignity for everyone, right? But there's a boatload of women there that are going to be going back and forth. And, Justice Hagedorn is kind of stuck there. And so what's that going to look like, and how's that going to play out? Or will he take the opportunity to play I hate to use the word matchmaker, and kind of soften everything to make sure things are palatable?
Jesse, what do you make of this infighting that we've seen really now gone public? And there are a ton of potentially big rulings this court is going to hand down.
Seeing that dysfunction spill out into the public sphere, I think the biggest concern for people who have been on the court or people who care about the judiciary is, what is the public trust in the judicial system, and what does that infighting do to that? Do people trust that these justices are able to work together collegially, that they're able to make measured decisions? What I'm curious to see is, this is a huge opportunity for the ideologically liberal wing, but does the pendulum swing too far? Do they overplay their hand and ruin their chances of keeping that majority?
And 2025 is just around the corner, with an announcement in that race with Brad Schimmel already announcing he's going to take Jay. I mean, is 2025 going to be more expensive than we just saw?
Good question. What I've been hearing from some of my sources is that they're watching this court see what it takes up, what it decides. Because if it decides that abortion in Wisconsin is legal, that the 1849 law does not apply to consensual abortions, that's not going to fire up the conservative base that much. If the court puts new maps in place that are better for Democrats, that's not really that big a deal. But if it were to take for example, the case that can overturn the school choice program, which it did not take, if it weighs in on business liabilities, things that really fire up conservative donors, that would fuel that money machine for 2025. And don't forget, if liberals win that seat in 25, they are guaranteed that majority of the court at least through 2028, because in 26, you have Rebecca Bradley up, in 27, Annette Ziegler. So conservatives have to, if they lose that race, have to win both of those races to even have a shot in 28 against Rebecca Bradley. That's a lot of things you have to do, or Rebecca Dallett. Plus, if you have to do, just to have a shot for the majority again.
Ken, how much are people still talking about abortion?
I'm not hearing a lot about it at all. It doesn't come up unless you mention it. Abortion is one of those things in the African American community that there's a clear line of demarcation, right? You're either religious and you're against it, or you're, for lack of a better term, liberal and you're for it. But there's not a lot of fight about it. I see in other communities the fighting and the vitriol that goes back and forth, whereas there doesn't seem to be that in the Black community. We respect the fact that people have their own decisions to make, and that's something that they do.
In the meantime, Jesse, Republicans in the legislature are looking to potentially now to get ahead of what the court may do. Speaker Voss indicating some potential action in the coming weeks to you.
Yeah, Republicans have been trying to figure out how to address this, how to mitigate it as an election issue, and Speaker Robin Voss has said he'd like to see this go to the voters. So there's a kind of seldom used mechanism that would allow the legislature to pass a law. If the governor were to sign it, it would only be enacted if voters were to approve it. And that's what Speaker Voss is talking about, and the proposal that he's kind of putting out there is somewhere in a 12 to 14 week ban.
Any scenario the governor would sign this?
No. No.
Okay. With that, we need to take a break. Quick and decisive. We're back with more of the critical local races. Our panel is monitoring ahead of 2024 next.